Well, I feel like I should ask everyone a question. I'm sorry.
Okay,
We're not live,
live
right?
now. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you from here in India, and good morning, good afternoon to depending on which time zone you are in. This is the third day of the global uh, race summit that we are organizing here from the Minister of Electronics and IT in India, and it is my proud pleasure to invite our keynote speakers for the session on bridging the gap between theory and practice, vision for global partnership on AI. We have, for this hour and a half long session, we have two keynote speakers, and then we'll be having a panel discussion. The session is essentially to discuss about the Global Partnership on AI, which is an international and multi-stakeholder initiative to guide the responsible development and use of AI, which is grounded in human rights, inclusion, diversity, innovation, and economic growth. India is one of the founding members of GPAI. We joined the partnership in June 2020, along with other leading economies such as US, UK, EU, Canada, and so on and so forth. This session will be exploring sustainable ways of collaborating with multiple economies under the aegis of GPAI. It will look at the key objectives of GPAI and the four groups that have been formed to deliberate on the issues surrounding the global partnership. So without further ado, let me introduce the first keynote speaker of the day, Professor Mr. Arun Ramamurthy. Mr. Arun Ramamurthy is a senior infrastructure specialist specializing in digital technologies at Asian Development Bank. He's been part of ICT solutions ranging from an e-health platform in a remote village in Bhutan to an e-governance master plan for the country of Myanmar, as well as piloting voice biometric technologies in Yangon Technological University. The topic for discussion is developing responsible AI, practical initiatives by ADB, and key challenges, along with ideas to bridge the gap. So over to you, Mr. Arun Ramamurthy.
Thank you, Saurabhji. Namaste and good day to all of you. And it is thank you very much for providing me an opportunity to present in this prestigious summit. I wish to congratulate the thought leadership of Niti Aayog and the National E-Governance Division, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology for conducting this summit. The summit is very appropriate and timely. Artificial intelligence combined with big data systems, cloud technology, Internet of Things, and 3D printings are buzzwords that will govern the present and future, which will fundamentally change the way we work, live, and relate to one another. This technology ecosystem is integrating the physical, digital, and biological dimensions, which in turn impacts all the disciplines, industries, and economies. The extent of the shift and disruptions are so massive that the stakes of the promise as well as peril are high. To have an idea about the stakes involved, it might be helpful for us to consider the following statistics. One, currently there are about 20 billion internet connected things that are being used. Nearly 50% of enterprises globally are now adopting cloud technology as an operative term. And by 2022, 1 in 5 workers engaged in non-routine tasks will rely on AI, and AI augmentation will help business enterprises to recover about 6.2 billion hours of worker productivity. So the context setting for responsible development of AI is gaining much more importance now. So the right use of the technology at the right time has great potential and reach to dramatically improve our efficiency of the society, organizations, and boost economic growth, social indices, and even manage resources in a way that can help the environment to heal from its present stage. Despite all the advantages of the AI ecosystem of technologies that offers, there is potential pitfall. Societies and organizations may be unable or unwilling to adapt, and governments may fail to regulate or employ the tools to reap its benefits. Possible reasons for this could be the lack of capacity in technologies, access to affordable reach and research and development activities, inadequate policies, and lack of appropriate sustainable business models to democratize the technology. This will cause shifting of power in favor of early birds, creating inequality, new security issues, and fragmentation of the society. To achieve the benefits of the new age AI, to limit the perils, and achieve sustainable development goals, it is only logical that one should systematically adopt and supervise the implementation of AI. For this, one need to coordinate initiatives to discuss strategies, develop a body of knowledge, and develop AI technology governance principles in both public and private sectors. The Asian Development Bank in Manila is undertaking strategic and tactical activities that foster the use of responsible AI in its operations. We believe that these initiatives will demonstrate the practical application of the technology in development interventions and help to bridge the gaps between the theory and practice. Let me now turn on and provide you some examples where ADB is using these technologies through its loan and technical assistance modalities, predominantly in its East Asia operation, and also some of the examples I will touch in other regional operations of ADB. In the East Asian context, we are processing a loan in Shanxi province of People's Republic of China. Hereinafter, I will refer as PRC. This project aims to increase the transport and logistic efficiency by adopting green and smart approaches to achieve low carbon development of the Shanxi's important metropolitan cities. The cold storage and warehouse facilities that are being built through this project uses modern technology platforms such as AI-based autonomous material handling facilities and Internet of Things enabled sensors to manage the inventory. Further, the project is envisaging to develop a provincial platform that enables traffic routes optimization for logistic movements, including maximizing empty spaces and of trucks and traffic planning using AI algorithms. ADB is also implementing a project in Guizhou province of PRC. In this project, intelligent transport is being used solutions are being used to manage and regulate traffic. The project adopts human-centered design principles and has engaged users of public infrastructure to develop intelligent transport infrastructure aspects through hackathons. Further, an intelligent connected vehicle zone is being developed as part of this project, which uses autonomous vehicles for carrying passengers, trucks to transport industrial goods, and road cleaning vehicles. This factors institutional setup, institutional testing mechanisms, simulation capabilities, certification mechanisms for autonomous vehicles that are playing in those zones, and establishing safety protocols and guidelines. This is complemented by developing policies, including ethical and legal aspects for maintaining autonomous fleets in the city operations. In Gansu province of PRC, we are implementing an agriculture sector project where AI and Internet of Things based sensors are used to increase farm productivity. AI is used in this region to provide advisory services by matching the demand and supply of agricultural produce in the project area for enabling increase of income for farming community. Furthering the greening actions in the PRC, we are now exploring a scheme through the technical assistance to use blockchain-based big data solutions to effectively trade voluntary carbon emissions in Shanghai. Now in Mongolia, ADB is exploring a very interesting project which uses AI to predict potential diseases that a citizen in the pilot area will encounter. This will help policymakers devise preventive actions to contain disease outbreaks and undertake preparatory plans to support the rehabilitation of affected persons. The Mongolia Medical Research Board has cleared the ethical aspect of the use of this approach in the project area. The outbreak of COVID-19 and subsequent preventive measures such as lockdowns have positively contributed to the containment of the disease. However, there are incidences where women, children, and disadvantaged are subjected to domestic violence. To provide protective support to sections of society in Mongolia, ADB is implementing an AI-supported platform to address the domestic violence aspect against the vulnerables. ADB is also currently developing a project in Mongolia as part of tourism sector development in digital, including a digital museum component. This digital museum is to enhance the effectiveness of rock art monuments in Western Mongolia. In this project, we are exploring actively the use of augmented reality and AI solutions that best suit the context. In the health sector, recently ADB has piloted an innovative e-health project in Bhutan using television white space based internet technology and hosting electronic medical records using cloud technology. The initiative showcased the possibility of providing access to medical resources to remote villages virtually. It enabled some patients to avoid traveling to district hospital and yielded a saving on out-of-pocket expenses. It is estimated that the facility could enable 2 patients per day in a village of about 500 households to avoid traveling to the district hospital and thereby yield annual saving of about 33,600 US dollars. This is a big amount in the context of Bhutanese village households. Also, we have piloted the application of voice-based voice recognition technology and development of a virtual digital government roadmap in Myanmar recently. ADB is also implementing AI-based components in projects in Thailand and Cambodia to facilitate agribusiness development opportunities benefiting farmers, traders, and logistics service providers. This project also ensures food security as well, safety as well as security. Other AI areas ADB is internally involved includes text recognition and topic detection activities. The technology is used for scanning documents fed through multiple sources and formats to construct passages that suit some of the standard requirements of operational documents of ADB. Now let me turn on to certain challenges that I foresee in successfully implementing new age digital technologies in developmental sector. The challenges faced by posed by these AI technologies are many and must be handled through collaborative action. I list some of these here for the panelists' consideration to explore further. Challenge number 1 is, how are we going to develop institutions to prepare the society for AI revolution? What are the constraints in the areas of policies and capacity development? Challenge number 2, what are the cybersecurity dimensions that we need to tighten for protection of national and international assets of vital importance? For example, how are we going to protect the grids, national and regional grids, protection of global financial systems, and protection of electronic platforms facilitating global trade or as well as intra-regional trades? Third challenge I foresee is, how can we deal with the protection of individual citizens' data and information? How to bring about consensus in adopting compliance to international regulations such as General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR). Challenge 4, how can we develop and enforce ethical use of AI? Is it possible for us to develop, simulate, monitor, and track bias both in supervised and unsupervised deep learning annotations and algorithms that AI involves? Challenge number 5, what are the means to develop compatible technology, equipment standards, and testing facilities? Challenge 6, how to manage potential sociological impact on human behaviors? Is there any compensatory mechanism that can be developed to address the potential job losses, replacement, and reskilling needs? Challenge number 7, what are the issues related to the use of AI in the legal context? How do we deal with the jurisdiction of disputes arising out in this area? For example, if I'm in a driverless vehicle produced in a foreign country that meets with an accident, how to allocate the responsibility? Where to fix the responsibilities for administering wrong drugs based on medical image analysis output of an AI system that is interpreted by a medical professional? What are the users and producers liabilities and indemnification rules? So these are some of the challenges that I'm foreseeing in appropriate sectors. The solutions to these challenges can be solved through cross-sectoral programs on regional cooperation, reskilling, and regulations. It will need not only close collaboration, but development of trust and transparency in information creation, storage, sharing, and use between all stakeholders and amongst nations, international institutions, and alliances such as GPAI. Now let me dwell on some of the thoughts for bridging the gap. First, data, computing infrastructure, algorithms, and enabling environment are the four key pillars for mainstreaming inclusive AI that will foster innovation, diversity, and economic growth. Governments and international institutions and alliances such as GPAI will have to work closely in identifying appropriate use cases and ensure availability of high quality data with needed security for effective functioning of AI ecosystem. This will require one, establishing development planning systems, tuning to the AI needs such as organizations and facilities that can establish to run supervised learning and deep learning concepts. Two, improve service delivery capabilities by blending AI, robotics, and other technologies like drones and satellite imageries. And three, strengthen financial management and sustainability of data gathering and maintenance institutions. Second, developing upstream and downstream actions that will facilitate adoption of AI. The upstream function includes infrastructure creation, funding, and sustaining the initiatives through the effective use of private sector, ventures, and public-private partnerships. The downstream aspect involves identifying proper use case and applications. Third, an offsetting mechanism should be developed to deal with instances where AI results in job losses. An approach to robot tax and other mechanisms such as the universal service obligations practiced in the telecommunication sector should be developed and executed. Simultaneously, we may also need to examine appropriate tax and tapping corporate social responsibility methods to help affected people. Fourth, we need to study setting up of international body to educate, track, monitor, regulate, and serve as appellate body to ensure ethical, responsible, and productive use of AI technologies. Lastly, there need to be prioritization of immediate sectors that require massive focus. For example, how fast we can accelerate research and development of new materials and drug discoveries that can help protecting people from diseases. Is it possible for us to get a consensus on use of our outer space and space technologies to monitor weather and climatic conditions to calculate in advance disaster events and taking appropriate autonomous actions or decisions? What are the systems that are possible using AI for countering terrorism, violence against humanity and biodiversity, and fraudulent money transactions and corruption? How can the technology be used in health sector to provide affordable access and efficient health services to poor and vulnerable? As the application of technology is very immense, it is essential to adopt a two-pronged approach. The first one is prioritizing funding and dealing with questions on global public goods and ethics, largely driven or led by governments, international institutions, and alliances such as GPAI, while the responsible sectoral adoption of technology is completely left to the private sector with appropriate guidance and regulations in place. In conclusion, I just want to emphasize that I have provided a few instances where innovatively ADB has applied the digital technologies to start changing the lifestyle and lives of citizens in Asia and Pacific. The issues that we need wider examination includes human behavior, data governance, legal and capacity building related requirements. In addition to these, hard infrastructure, broadband connectivity, and digital literacy are crucial factors in making digital developments sustainable and inclusive. With advancements in technologies such as 5G systems, the task of providing level playing field between the digitally advantaged and digitally less advantaged is huge. And in this context, the government and development partners and initiatives such as GPAI will have to plan methodic adoption of AI technologies in collaboration with private sector. The governments must massively invest in skills building and prepare the society for an orderly transition. International collaboration between countries, multilateral agencies, and enterprises should create pilot implementations, develop standards, security protocols, regulations, exploring new business models, including private-public partnerships, develop AI technology demonstration platforms, policies, and information sharing for mainstreaming. Thank you very much for your attention. Once again, for providing me an opportunity to present in this prestigious summit. I wish the summit all the best and success We all need to, in this scenario, we all need to be staying safe and staying healthy. Thank you once again. Dhanyavad.
Uh, Thank you so much, Mr. Ramamurthy. I think you have brilliantly summarized ADB's engagement with the AI ecosystem and the challenges that you have identified and the issues in implementation of AI-based solutions, the trust regimes that have to develop, the compliance mechanisms that have to be put in place, and the institutional responses that probably will depend on the context and will vary from one nation to other, and the role that GPI has to play in making some of these things uniformize them to the extent possible. So I believe you have given enough pointers for the panel to deliberate upon. I thank you once again. And that takes me to the second keynote speaker of the session. It is my proud privilege to welcome Professor Daniela Ruse. She is the first woman director of Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT, USA. She is a PhD in computer science from Cornell University and a clairvoyant in technology, one who sees the future and is looking at enabling that future by ensuring that the machines and the physical systems, the cyber physical systems work together. She is also, to my understanding, serving as on the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, PCAST, where she's playing a very instrumental role. Her research interests include robotics, mobile computing, and data science. So with this very brief introduction, I invite Professor Daniela Ruse to give her thoughts on operationalizing some of the objectives and plans for GPAI. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction. I'm very honored to be here. Hello, everyone. Let's see, Mr. Ramamurthy has given us a very comprehensive view of what some of the possibilities are and what we might want to do in order to unleash those possibilities. I just want to take a minute to talk a little bit about what is under the hood and in fact, what might be actually happening in the near future. But I'd like to start by observing that we can't really understand where we are with AI unless we understand where it came from. And I want you to picture that it's 1956. And in 1956, an MIT assistant professor by the name of Marvin Minsky, the guy in the middle with glasses, decided to gather his friends. They went to New Hampshire, which is the neighboring state, where there are lots of woods and mountains. They spent a month hiking and talking. And after a month, they announced to the world that they have coined a new academic field of study, the science and engineering of making machines with human-like capabilities in how they move in the world, how they speak, how they play games, even how they learn. And since then, since 1956, the field has been diligently working to enable this progress. So think about it, 1956, that is a long time ago. And we are now and providing autonomy support for people in physical activities, that is autonomy in motion. And together, these new capabilities have the opportunity to revolutionize so many sectors of our industry, to ensure that transportation is safe, to ensure that we can better diagnose, treat, and monitor disease, to ensure that we can communicate instantaneously, no matter what language we speak, essentially to ensure that humans have the tools to focus on high-level tasks, on critical thinking, while machines can focus on routine tasks, because that's what machines are capable of doing. And I just wanted, since we're doing this this talk, I just wanted to share just a little bit of a video from one of my research projects where we are building autonomous vehicles that learn from humans how to drive. And so this vehicle is doing a first ride in this wooded setting, in this country setting. The vehicle is seeing this road for the first time. This vehicle was trained in the city. And so the capabilities of these vehicles are getting to be pretty extraordinary. And so the question you should ask yourself is, well, how long did it take to put this together? And more precisely, do you know when was the first autonomous drive in the United States that was coast to coast? I'm going to pause for a second and then tell you that it was in 1995. So think about how long it took to go from research innovation in the university laboratories to a point where we can begin to dream about products. This is the drive that the vehicle took in 1995. It was not fully autonomous the way we define autonomy today, but many of the technologies that now exist in self-driving vehicles were tested and were experimented with at that time. I also want to, so that's one lesson. It takes a long time to get to the point where you have new capabilities. The other point I want to tell you is that the AI systems are not ready to replace humans in critical, or let's say in safety critical decision making, but they can do so much for humans in other types of settings. So for instance, I want to show, so for instance, any field that has data can now benefit. And to give you a sense of what it means for humans to work together with AI systems, I want to give you an example from a study that was done to diagnose lymph node cells and classify them as cancer or not cancer. Doctors made 3.5% error. The AI system and the machine learning system made 7.5% error, but working together, the humans and the doctors achieved 80% improvement at 0.5% error. So there is tremendous opportunity to create these new tools that we can think of as, in some sense, as interns that can pore over data, can run around, can bring to people, to decision makers, information to act on, information that would be hard to get otherwise. And so staying with healthcare, I would say that, in fact, a lot of aspects of AI and IT have combined to improve the healthcare system, and they're converging. The capabilities that are enabled through networking and communication that allows us to connect today and allows doctors and patients to connect virtually by Zoom. System architecture, databases, security and privacy, human-computer interaction, these combined with AI, machine learning, and data structure to enable so many new capabilities for the healthcare system, to make the healthcare system better. So it's important to think about the interconnection between all these different technologies. And this actually has an impact on business, because each of these fields actually translates into work and products that are done by different types of companies. So altogether, right now we have a very complex ecosystem that includes universities, industries, and government. We have university and industry research enterprises. We have federal funders. We have emerging startups. We have mature technology companies. We have venture firms. We have communities for open source software, and we have a regulatory environment. And so an important question is how to coordinate across this complex ecosystem so that everyone keeps, in some sense, individuality and benefits, but together the whole is greater than the sum of parts. And an important part of this is to remember the long history of how much it takes to go from idea in a research lab to actual production. And we have been studying this question as part of various academy studies. And I wanted to show to you this picture that is a little bit busy, but in fact, it captures IT research areas. Robotics is in cyan, and AI is in navy blue right underneath. And what you see in green is university research, and in red you see industry advancements. And the arrows show the complex interplay between idea in a research lab and product, going back and forth, going back and forth. There is such an interesting and important connection between the industry needs and people's needs, and how we shape problems in research laboratories. And so so I wanted to share this with you so that you can understand the complexity of the path. And the other thing you should understand is that right now, these fields are accelerating extraordinarily fast. We see so much progress in AI, machine learning, robotics, and in general in IT. And it's important to keep this intricate interaction as we think about how to best harvest the benefits. Now, one example of bridging the gap and of ensuring that companies can bridge the gap and understand what is happening in research in a timely way is a program we created at MIT called the AI Accelerator, where we are working with a government organization, the US Air Force. We're working with Lincoln Laboratories, which is an organization at MIT with strong translational background. And we're working with campus AI researchers to connect these different groups and to bring them to the same level of understanding of what is possible with technologies. We have interdisciplinary teams that include members from each of these organizations, so that the users of AI get informed and educated while the AI research is taking place. Now, as we think about the processes for connecting and for connecting researchers, for translating the information faster and faster, and for deploying all the possibilities, we really have to understand what is the scope of current AI, machine learning, and robotic systems. And we have to understand what we need to do in order to ensure confidence in products developed with these types of systems inside. So these systems are not perfect. They make mistakes. They depend on data. If the data is bad, the system will have bad behavior. If the data is not comprehensively labeled, it's going to be slower to get to results. We need millions and millions of data. So there are a lot of significant challenges. But as we think about deployment, I believe it's important to consider several attributes that we need to almost develop drivers license-like tests to ensure that they are met. And one is explanation and interpretation of what the system does. Most machine learning systems will reach a decision, but they will not tell you why. And so we need to strengthen how we understand what these systems do, and the research community is working on this. We also need to ensure people's privacy. We need to ensure that the results obtained with machine learning systems are fair, and that we understand how good the data used to train the systems is. And so just to give you some examples from different sectors, for explanation and interpretability, in finance, we might ask, why didn't I get the loan? In health, we might say, why is it that I got this diagnosis? With privacy, in healthcare, we might want to say, you can use my data to train for diagnostics, but you have to keep it private. And for fairness, you might ask, did I get the same treatment as other patients? We can look at every single industry sector and identify questions that fit this grid. And so the regulators, we need to really keep these questions in mind. But the only way to get to a good answer is to bring together all parties, because the technologists, the researchers understand the technology, the business leaders understand how it can be used, and then the policymakers should be on the same page to understand what regulations to put forth to ensure that the products can be used and the benefits are for the greater good. Now, in the process of doing this, we also have to realize that the development and deployment of AI generates new ethical concerns, and these include things such as, what are the safety challenges for the system? Are you augmenting or replacing human judgment with your AI system? How does your solution scale? Do you have data or algorithmic bias in your system? These things all have to be carefully considered. And so one possible set of principles businesses might consider are around the responsible, equitable, traceable, reliable, and governable use of AI systems. And so by responsible, we mean that human beings should exercise appropriate levels of judgment and remain responsible for their systems. By equitable, we mean that steps should be taken to avoid unintended bias and to avoid systems that would inadvertently cause harm to people. By traceable, we mean that technical experts should be able to understand and audit these technologies. By reliable, we mean that AI should have an explicit, well-defined domain of use. And by governable, we mean that AI should be designed and engineered to fulfill their intended function while possessing the ability to detect and avoid unintended harm or disruption, and also for humans to be able to deactivate the deployed systems that demonstrate unintended behavior. So these are examples of the kinds of things that need to be in place before we can safely embrace products built with AI. Now, an interesting question around all these things is, how is this impacting work? Does that mean we're going to put everyone out of work? And people often talk about how the agricultural revolution really how the industrial revolution put horses out of a job, because there used to be a lot of horses, but with the invention of machines, the number of horses used for agricultural and transportation activities went way down. And I wanted to share with you a chart that was done by McKinsey, which I find very compelling. This chart actually observes that in everything we do, whether you're a government leader, whether you are a manufacturing worker, whether you're a service worker, whether you're a professor, we all do multiple things in our jobs. We manage others, we apply expertise, we do stakeholder interactions, we do unpredictable physical work, we do data tasks, and we do predictable physical work. And the tasks that can be automated today are the predictable physical work tasks and the data-centric tasks. These are the tasks that are in blue and in green in this chart, and the size of the bubble shows about how much time people spend in that task in the corresponding profession. So this is really interesting, because it really kind of shifts the focus from thinking who's going to be left behind to how are we going to take advantage of these new intelligent tools to augment people, to give them more time to focus on the more interesting parts of jobs. The other thing I want to say is that while it's easier to think about what might go away, it is much harder to think about what will come. For instance, in the United States, agricultural employment dropped to 2% in the 20th century, but nobody predicted the rise of the service economy. And in the same way, here are a number of jobs that did not exist 10 years ago when the internet revolution was in full bloom. App development, user experience designer, sustainability expert, social media manager. And so we think that new industries will lead to new jobs, and that there will be a wealth of activities in the future. But of course, this means that we need to have a new generation that is well prepared. That means putting an emphasis on high school education, ensuring that high school graduates are IT literate and AI literate. But it also means thinking about reskilling, thinking about creating policies that involve the workers, the government, the business leaders, and come up with plans that help the current workers improve and keep up with the new tools that are being developed. So there are great opportunities for the future, but we have a complex environment. In this complex environment, we should think about the fact that new capabilities take a long time. We should think about that the fact that it takes complex interactions to go from ideas to product, and that we really need an educated workforce that operates with a code of ethics. And with this, I'm going to stop and turn it over to the moderator.
Thank you, Professor Roos. You started by taking us literally through a drive down the memory lane, and showing what happened in MIT in the beginning when there were developments happening around AI. And I believe the work that you have showcased of engagement of MIT around AI-based technologies is also, I think, very fascinating. The grid that you showcased in terms of deployment of AI and the principles that you talked about in terms of the um, um, reliability, the governance framework, I think those are all very pertinent questions for all of us to address. So I believe we have kept some time for question and answers, but I think I will keep it for later because we have to keep track of time also. So without, I would now request, in fact, Mrs. Arunima Sheikh Sarkar, who is our moderator for the panel discussion, to chip in here. Mrs. Sarkar, she is the AI lead for Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution, C4IR India, from the World Economic Forum. She leads the co-design for governance protocol and technology policy frameworks for artificial intelligence. She'll be moderating the session, and I now request her to please take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaur. Good evening, morning and afternoon, everyone, to all my co-panelists and also to all of you who are joining us from various parts of the globe. We have a very diverse and esteemed panel today. I would like to introduce you to the esteemed speakers. We have Dr. Christian Gottman. He's the Global Head of AI and Data Science at Taito Avery. He's the Executive Director at the Nordic Artificial Intelligence Institute and a board member at the Swedish AI Society. We have Professor Daniela Roos also joining us for the panel. We have Dr. Hemant Darbari, Director General, CDAC. Mr. Jordan Zed, Director General, External and Trade Policy, Government of Canada. And we have Mr. Umakant Soni, co-founder of AI Foundry, and also helping in setting up India's first AI Research Translation Park, ART Park in Bangalore. So we would today like to talk about the future of AI and global cooperation. We, that is the private sector, public sector, academia, and civil society, need to participate in the future of AI. We need a global and multi-stakeholder cooperation, which is grounded in human rights and scientific evidence. We need to learn from each other and act as a real network. So research on legal, regulatory, and policy aspects, along with scientific research, is important to advance AI, benefiting society and mitigating any of the unintended risks. India has joined the Global Partnership on AI as a founding member in June 2020, along with Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Mexico, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Slovenia, UK, the US, and the European Union. So I'm really eager to hear everyone's thoughts and ideas with respect to this important global initiative, GPAI, and how we can move from theory to practice. So we'll move right into the panel discussion. I would like to start with Mr. Jordan Zed. So Jordan, you have been working on the GPAI initiative since its beginning. The idea for GPAI was initiated by France and Canada. Canada has been the founding member of GPAI. And there are several initiatives, including setting up the International Center of Expertise in Montreal that you have been working on over the past couple of years to bring it to this stage. I would request you to share with us why is a global partnership necessary in AI, some of the key objectives of GPAI, where are we, and some of the initiatives that have been taken by Canada.
Great, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate that introduction, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you. And first, a big thanks to the two keynote speakers. I think you set the table extremely well for a very rich discussion. A lot of excellent ideas grounded in specific sectors and areas of work. So really appreciate that. And also just a huge thanks to our hosts. What a discussion. I think it's really exemplifies the leadership that you are providing in this space, and we're delighted to be a participant in it. Maybe I'll take just a few minutes to give you a bit of a sense of how GPAI came about, why as you mentioned, Arunima, why this is important and what we can hopefully achieve. And obviously very happy and looking forward to hearing views of others around the table and responding to any questions. First, maybe I'll say, this is an incredible opportunity for us collectively in the public and private sectors, in civil society in general, to seize the opportunity that AI technology represents. And as we're navigating this, I think part of the role of governments in general is always to seize those opportunities while at the same time navigating and helping to mitigate some of the risks, some of the challenges in this space. And my minister in Canada, Minister Baines, will frequently speak about and ground any discussion in AI really in two things, in two areas. One is that whatever we're doing in this space needs to be grounded in public trust, that whatever we do needs to be reflective of our ability to ensure that privacy and security considerations are at the forefront, and that we're navigating this space with those elements and others in mind in order to maintain public trust. The second is inclusion, that really forms the foundation of how we as a government and as an active member in the international community would like to pursue these discussions, that we're doing it, as was mentioned, at the outset, in a multi-stakeholder manner, that we're learning from and facilitating and convening dynamic discussions with experts in the private sector, public sector, and civil society much more broadly. So it's really with those values, those principles in mind that we wanted to pursue this global partnership on artificial intelligence, which originated during a conversation between our Prime Minister Trudeau and President Macron on the margins. How can we bring expertise together in a thoughtful, consistent manner that ultimately is grounded in responsible, ethical use and development of AI? And given the nature of the opportunity and the challenge that we face, this is not a Canadian. We really went about converting that bilateral project into a multilateral one. So delighted that India is part of that list of founding members, along with the others that you mentioned, the 15 members. And essentially what we're working toward now is the first plenaries and beyond, I must say. This is year one. And so of course, it's representative of those who expressed interest and who have joined, but we recognize the importance of reflecting a diversity of views, both geographically and in terms of experience and background. So we're working to do that, but we'll essentially be bringing together civil society, governments, and academia to help shape and help navigate the priorities in this space in a way that ultimately provides a bit of a toolkit for and guidance to policy development in this space grounded in our shared values. So that really is about understanding how do we do this in a way that's consistent with human rights, our fundamental freedoms, our shared democratic values, and also the collection of values reflected in the OECD recommendation on AI that I know India and many others participated in developing, which were adopted by ministers last year. So very importantly, grounding our thinking in those areas. So I really did appreciate the comments from both of our keynotes that reflected the fundamental nature and importance of those principles and values guiding our work. So maybe I'll just speak very quickly to why is global partnership? I think, we for the reasons that I mentioned before, the collective nature of this issue, we're in a digital economy. All of our, many of our companies, the organizations operate in a context that doesn't know national boundaries. So by its nature, leveraging this technology and understanding and learning from each other about how to seize the potential, and especially in a medical context, in a health context, in the current crisis we're facing in the pandemic, that has only made the initiative that we're undertaking even more important and even more timely. And so as part of our work, there's a dedicated working group that will focus on leveraging AI in particular in response to the pandemic and future pandemics that we might face as a global community. So I would say that the current context only reinforces the original goals and the original rationale for the creation of this initiative. The other point that I'll just mention very quickly is about creating a platform that brings together that diversity of views and frankly allows a collision of ideas on an ongoing basis from different parts of the world, from different orientations from the public and private sectors, and allows that tension to come to the surface and ultimately, hopefully, lead to specific tools and ideas that we can all leverage as a global community. So that might mean, for example, specific applied projects, that might mean case studies, that might mean the development and advancement of specific research in particular areas of algorithms. And what does that look like in practice? How can we ultimately apply the principles that many of us participated in developing last year within the OECD context and take that and translate those into practice? So that's really the project of GPAI, and leveraging the expertise of this table is exactly how we hope to be able to do that. So maybe I'll leave it there for the moment, but very happy to take questions about the specific working groups. I will say, perhaps before concluding, there are 4 areas of priority that have been identified for this first year: responsible AI, AI and pandemic response, data governance,